So we are going to be reading the second half of chapter 3 today as we continue in Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm Miss Erin, and I'm so glad that you're here joining us today for our chapter book story time at the Caribou Public Library. If you'll remember, Meg and Joe were at the party, and Joe had found a corner kind of by some curtains where she was going to just sit and watch people and kind of hide. And it turns out somebody else was there as well. The Laurence boy. "Dear me, I didn't know anyone was here," stammered Joe, preparing to back out as speedily as she had bounced in. But the boy laughed and said pleasantly, though he looked a little startled, "Don't mind me. Stay if you like." "Shan't I disturb you?" "Not a bit. I only came here because I don't know many people, and I felt rather strange at first, you know." "So did I. Don't go away, please, unless you'd rather." The boy sat down again and looked at his boots until Joe said, trying to be polite and easy, "I think I've had the pleasure of seeing you before. You live near us, don't you?" "Next door," and he looked up and laughed outright, for Joe's prim manner was rather funny when he remembered how they had chatted about cricket when he brought the cat home. That put Joe at her ease, and she laughed too, and she said in her heartiest way, "We did have such a good time over your nice Christmas present." Grandpa scented. "But you put it into his head, didn't you now?" "How is your cat, Miss March?" asked the boy, trying to look sober, while his black eyes shone with fun. "Nicely, thank you, Mr. Laurence, but I ain't Miss March. I'm only Joe," returned the young lady. "I'm not Mr. Laurence. I'm only Laurie." "Laurie Laurence? What an odd name." "My first name is Theodore, but I don't like it, for the fellows called me Dora, so I made them say Laurie instead." "I hate my name too. So sentimental. I wish everyone would say Joe instead of Josephine. How did you make the boys stop calling you Dora?" "I thrashed 'em." "I can't thrash Aunt March, so I suppose I shall have to bear it," said Joe, resigned herself with a sigh. "Don't you like to dance, Miss Joe?" asked Laurie, looking as if he thought the name suited her. "I like it well enough if there is plenty of room, and everyone is lively. In a place like this, I'm sure to upset something, tread on people's toes, or do something dreadful. So I keep out of mischief, and let Meg do the pretty. Don't you dance?" "Sometimes. You see, I've been abroad a good many years, and I haven't been about enough to know how you do things here." "Abroad!" cried Joe. "Oh, tell me about it. I love dearly to hear people describe their travels." Laurie didn't seem to know where to begin, but Joe's eager questions soon set him going, and he told her how he had been at school in Vevey, where the boys never wore hats, and had a fleet of boats on the lake, and for holiday fun went on walking trips about Switzerland with their teachers. "Don't I wish I'd been there!" cried Joe. "Did you go to Paris?" "We spent last winter there." "Can you talk French?" "We were not allowed to speak anything else at Vevey." "Do say some. I can read it, but I can't pronounce." "Quel nom est cette jeune demoiselle en les pantoufles jolies?" asked Laurie good-naturedly. "How nicely you do it. Let me see. You said, 'Who is the young lady in the pretty slippers?' didn't you?" "Oui, mademoiselle." "It's my sister Margaret, and you knew it was. Do you think she is pretty?" "Yes. She makes me think of the German girls. She looks so fresh and quiet and dances like a lady." Joe quite glowed with pleasure at this boyish praise of her sister, and stored it up to repeat to Meg. Both peeped and criticized and chatted until they felt like old acquaintances. Laurie's bashfulness soon wore off, for Joe's gentlemanly demeanor amused and set him at his ease, and Joe was her merry self again, because her dress was forgotten and nobody lifted their eyebrows at her. She liked the Laurence boy better than ever, and took several good looks at him so that she might describe him to the girls, for they had no brothers, very few male cousins, and boys were almost unknown creatures to them. Curly black hair, brown skin, big black eyes, long nose, nice teeth, little hands and feet, tall as I am, very polite for a boy, and altogether jolly. Wonder how old he is. It was on the tip of Joe's tongue to ask, but she checked herself in time, and with unusual tact, tried to find out in a roundabout way. "I suppose you are going to college soon? I see you pegging away at your books. No, I mean studying hard." And Joe blushed at the dreadful pegging which had escaped her. Laurie smiled, but didn't seem shocked, and answered with a shrug, "Not for 2 or 3 years yet. I won't go before 17, anyway." "Aren't you but 15?" asked Jo, looking at the tall lad, whom she had imagined 17 already. "16, next month." "How I wish I was going to college. You don't look as if you liked it." "I hate it. Nothing but grinding or skylarking, and I don't like the way fellows do either, in this country." "What do you like?" "To live in Italy, and to enjoy myself in my own way." Jo wanted very much to ask what his own way was, but his black brows looked rather threatening as he knit them, and so she changed the subject by saying, as her foot kept time, "That's a splendid polka. Why don't you go and try it?" "If you will come too," he answered, with a queer little French bow. "Oh, I can't, for I told Meg I wouldn't, because—" There Jo stopped and looked undecidedly whether to tell or to laugh. "Because what?" asked Laurie, curiously. "You won't tell?" "Never." "Well, I have a bad trick of standing before the fire, and so I burned my frocks, and I scorched this one. Though it's nicely mended, it shows, and Meg told me to keep still so no one would see it. You may laugh if you want to. It is funny, I know." But Laurie didn't laugh. He only looked down a minute, and the expression on his face puzzled Jo when he said very gently, "Never mind that. I'll tell you how we can manage. There's a long hall out there, and we can dance grandly, and no one will see us. Please come." Jo thanked him and gladly went, wishing that she had 2 neat gloves when she saw the nice pearl-colored ones her partner put on. The hall was empty, and they had a grand polk, for Laurie danced well and taught her the German step, which delighted Jo, being full of swing and spring. When the music stopped, they sat down on the stairs to get their breath, and Laurie was in the midst of an account of a students' festival at Heidelberg, when Meg appeared in search of her sister. She beckoned, and Jo reluctantly followed her into a side room, where she found her on a sofa holding her foot and looking pale. "I've sprained my ankle. That stupid high heel turned and gave me a horrid wrench. It aches so I can hardly stand, and I don't know how I'm ever going to get home," she said, rocking to and fro in pain. "I knew you'd hurt your foot with those silly things. I'm sorry, but I don't see what you can do except to get a carriage or stay here all night," answered Jo, softly rubbing the poor ankle as she spoke. "I can't have a carriage without it costing ever so much. I dare say I can't get one at all, for most people come in their own, and it's a long way to the stable and no one to send." "I'll go." "No, indeed. It's past 10 and dark as Egypt. I can't stop here, for the house is full. Sally has some girls staying with her. I'll rest till Hannah comes, and then I'll do the best I can." "I'll ask Laurie. He will go," said Jo, looking relieved as the idea occurred to her. "Mercy, no, don't ask or tell anyone. Get me my rubbers and put these slippers with our things. I can't dance any more, but as soon as supper is over, watch for Hannah and tell me the minute she comes." "They're going out to supper now. I'll stay with you. I'd rather." "No, dear, run along and bring me some coffee. I'm so tired I can't stir." So Meg reclined, with the rubbers well hidden, and Jo went blundering away to the dining room, which she found after going into a china closet and opening the door of a room where old Mr. Gardner was taking a little private refreshment. Making a dive at the table, she secured the coffee, which she immediately split, thereby making the front of her dress as bad as the back. "Oh, dear. Oh, she spilt it. She didn't split it, she spilt it." "Oh, dear, what a blunderbuss I am," exclaimed Jo, finishing Meg's glove by scrubbing her gown with it. "Can I help you?" said a friendly voice, and there was Laurie, with a full cup in one hand and a plate of ice in the other. "I was trying to get something for Meg, who is very tired, and someone shook me, and here I am in a nice state," answered Jo, glancing dismally from the stained skirt to the coffee-colored glove. "Too bad. I was looking for someone to give this to. May I take it to your sister?" "Oh, thank you. I'll show you where she is. I don't offer to take it myself, for I should only get into another scrape if I did." Jo led the way, and, as if used to waiting on ladies, Laurie drew up a little table, brought a second installment of coffee and ice for Jo, and was so obliging that even particular Meg pronounced him a nice boy. They had a merry time over the bourbons, the bonbons, and mottos, and were in the midst of a quiet game of buzz with 2 or 3 other young people who had strayed in, when Hannah appeared. Meg forgot her foot and rose so quickly that she was forced to catch hold of Joe with an exclamation of pain. "Oh, hush, don't say anything," she whispered, adding aloud, "It's nothing. I turned my foot a little, that's all," and limped upstairs to put her things on. Hannah scolded, Meg cried, and Joe was at her wits' end until she decided to take things into her own hands. Slipping out, she ran down and, finding a servant, asked if he could get her a carriage. It happened to be a hired waiter who knew nothing about the neighborhood, and Joe was looking round for help when Laurie, who had heard what she did, came up and offered his grandfather's carriage, which had just come for him, and said, "It's so early." Oh, he said. "But, Joe," replied, "it's so early you can't mean to go yet," looking relieved but hesitating to accept the offer. "I always go early. I do, truly. Please let me take you home. It's all on my way, you know, and it rains, they say." That settled it. Telling him of Meg's mishap, Joe gratefully accepted and rushed up to bring down the rest of the party. Hannah hated rain as much as the cat does, so she made no trouble, and they rolled away in the luxurious closed carriage, feeling very festive and elegant. Laurie went on the box so Meg could keep her foot up, and the girls talked over their party in freedom. "I had a capital time. Did you?" asked Joe, rumpling up her hair and making herself comfortable. "Yes, until I hurt myself. Sally's friend, Annie Moffat, took a fancy to me and asked me to come and spend a week with her when Sally does. She's going in the spring, when the opera comes, and it will be perfectly splendid if Mother only lets me go," answered Meg, cheering up at the thought. "I saw you dancing with the red-headed man I ran away from. Was he nice?" "Oh, very. His hair is auburn, not red, and he was very polite, and I had a delicious redowa with him. He looked like a grasshopper in a fit when he did the new step. Laurie and I couldn't help laughing. Did you hear us?" "No, but it was very rude. What were you about all that time, hidden away there?" Joe told her adventures, and by the time she had finished, they were at home. With many thanks, they said good night and crept in, hoping to disturb no one. But the instant the door creaked, 2 little nightcaps bobbed up, and 2 sleepy but eager voices cried out, "Tell about the party! Tell about the party!" With that, Meg called a great want of manners. Joe had saved some bonbons for the little girls, and they soon subsided, after hearing the most thrilling events of the evening. "I declare it really seems like being a fine young lady to come home from my party in my carriage and sit in my dressing gown with a maid to wait on me," said Meg, as Joe bound up her foot with arnica and brushed her hair. "I don't believe fine young ladies enjoy themselves a bit more than we do, in spite of our burnt hair, old gowns, 1 glove apiece, and tight slippers that sprain our ankles when we are silly enough to wear them." And I think Joe was quite right. Well, that's the end of chapter 3. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.